Hi, welcome to our squat clinic. Today I want to talk about a particular exercise, the squat, that I think should be one of the foundations of any functional fitness program. From a functional standpoint, it's how you get up and how you get down. Now I think to a lot of folks squats can be intimidating, largely because when you think about squats, you envision someone with a large amount of weight on a barbell on their back, going down, plates clanging, a lot of grunting, and that's off-putting to some people. But there's lots of different ways to do a squat, and I really do think that everyone should be including them in their exercise regimen. My 2-year-old son does squats. He was born about 6 weeks premature, and one of the things that he's faced is some delayed motor development, especially in his gross motor skills. So his physical therapist has been having him do squats along with other things to help develop that base of strength that he needs, as well as to develop that relationship between his mind and his body, and to get his body working appropriately so that he can do things like stand up, walk, climb stairs, just really basic movements. I also coach folks well into their 80s, and for them squats are incredibly important because, again, it's how they get out of bed, it's how they get out of a chair, it's how they get off the toilet. So from a quality of life standpoint and an independent standpoint, it's a really important exercise. Further, folks that are in the prime of their athletic career also benefit tremendously from squats, because anything you do where you're generating power with your legs or your hips, those movements can be enhanced by doing squats. Whether you're trying to propel yourself forward or upwards against gravity, or whether you're trying to resist forces coming at you, the muscles that you utilize effectively are those that are developed during the squat. One example would just be a powerful jump. When you jump upwards, you're using these muscles to generate that power to lift yourself. Similarly, when you land, you're using the same muscles to receive your body weight as it comes back to earth. I guess one of the things too that's important about a squat is that it's a foundation movement, kind of a cornerstone movement that you can use to build other exercises upon. And also, because the large muscles of the legs and hips are involved, there's tremendous cardiovascular demand, and so there's metabolic and aerobic benefits as well. So my argument would be that anyone at any level should include squats as part of their exercise regimen. And in essence, the analogy I like to think of is if you're a carpenter, you've got to know how to swing a hammer. So if you're interested in functional fitness, you need to have squats in your toolbox. What I'd like to do now is spend some time talking about form, in particular with the squat movement. So initially I'm just going to show you a couple different squats, and then I'll go through and hit on some real particular coaching points, both from the front and the side, kind of break the movement down and then put it back all together. But in essence, from a squat, as I said, it's just getting up and getting down. So here's our movement from the front, and here's the same movement from the side. So what I want to do is break this down a little bit, like I said, and with almost any movement that's performed in a standing position, and even if it's a movement that largely uses your upper body, everything starts with your feet and proper feet placement. That's going to be our foundation. For a squat, where we want to be is have our feet just slightly wider than shoulder width, and we want our feet slightly turned out 5 or 10 degrees. And what this does, it puts us in proper alignment relative to the structure of the bones and then the ligaments in the knee. This is where we want to be. This will line us up just appropriately. Relative to posture or stance, why this is important, a couple different things. One, in any athletic event, what you're going to see, folks, is they're going to be wide and they're going to be low. Whether it's a shortstop in baseball, if you're receiving a serve in tennis, if you're playing linebacker, if you're skiing, the idea, if your feet are close together and your knees are locked, you're not very stable. You can be easily put off balance. As soon as you get wide and get low, you're much more stable. So that's what we're looking for relative to the squat. So again, slightly wider than shoulder width, feet turned slightly out. The next thing that's important is what we do with our head throughout the entire movement. And in particular, what we want to do is we want to maintain visual contact straight ahead. We want our eyes to remain basically level. We don't want our head looking up. We don't want our head looking down. And the reason is wherever your head is, that's going to basically set up your back posture to be where you want it to be. It's going to keep your core straight. It's going to protect your lower back. So again, as I go down, if you watch my eyes, what you're going to see is I maintain a level gaze throughout. So again, head posture is important. I'm going to turn now. The next thing that we want to think about is where do we actually have our weight on our foot And what it is we're not up on our toes and we're not up on our heels. The weight is centered right below this bone here. So right mid-foot is where our weight's at. In fact, I can almost wiggle my toes as I perform a squat. And so again, if you watch the whole thing, my feet are in the right position, the right width, angled the right way, the weight's in the right place, my head's going to stay up. There we go. And one thing, I'm going to add a bar real quick, because what I want you to see is when we put this all together, is we want to see this bar basically go straight up and down. We're trying to lift it against gravity, and so we want a almost perfectly vertical motion. We don't want a lot of movement going this way. And so if you watch the bar, it should largely go straight up and down. There. And so that's what we want to see. And so conversely, if you watch, if I allow my head to be lowered, what's going to happen is you're going to see some sway this way. So here's an example if my head comes down. You see how there's play side to side in that bar? That's not what we're looking for. So as you go through the movement in terms of how you actually do it, how you initiate, and how you carry it out, again, I'm going to go to the side here. Our initial movement is actually with our butt, and we want to go back and down. Almost envision that someone has a rope tied around our waist and they're pulling you backwards at an angle about like that. So we're going to go down first and back with the butt, and then as we come up, what we want to think about is we want to envision pushing the floor away. And as we do that, we're slowly going to transition the power from our butt and our legs, and then utilize these hips and almost slam a door with those hips. So I'm going to slightly exaggerate this movement. So it's back, down, push the floor away, slam that door with the hips. Because what we want to do is develop not only the muscles of the legs and the glutes back here, we want to develop hip strength also. Hips are incredibly important in any athletic event, and they're often undertrained by most folks, especially if you're using machines that kind of keep you locked in place. We want to use the hips too. The last thing I want to talk about is your range of motion. If you're doing anything where you've got heavy weight on your back, what you commonly hear is that you shouldn't go below 90 degrees. In other words, you shouldn't get below where this bone is basically horizontal. And in truth, I think you can go a fair bit lower than that, even with external weight if you feel comfortable. But in terms of range of motion, when you're just using your body weight, it's actually advantageous to train and increase your range of motion even down to here. And the reason I say this is actually a natural place for the body to be. And in many parts of the world, this is how people, they sit and they have dinner. They use the restroom in this manner. It's how they talk to each other. It's a big part of their life at any age is spent in that position. And so it's okay to go to a deep squat. Again, not with a real heavy external load, but from a range of motion standpoint, you should train and try and be able to get lower in your squat. And through time, you will increase your range of motion.